Take the exit. Turn right into the drive-thru.
Nope, I'm making dinner tonight.
You don't have time. Josh has practice.
Oh, that's right. I'll just get a salad.
And fries?
No, just the salad.
But salad cancels fries.
Salad only.
Fries.
Salad.
Fries.
Food noise isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. The affordable GLP-1 source that puts you on the road to successful weight loss.
Hey, can I get the...
Fries.
Salad. Sorry.
Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
Voices for Justice is a podcast that uses adult language and discusses sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including violence, abuse, and murder. This podcast may not be appropriate for younger audiences. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Some names have been changed or omitted per their request or for safety purposes. Listener discretion is advised. My name is Sarah Turney, and this is Voices for Justice. Today, I'm bringing you the story of 4-year-old Rilya Wilson. In the year 2000, Rilya was living with her sister and foster parents in the Miami, Florida area. During this time, all documentation indicates that her caseworker was checking on her regularly and making visits to the home, specifically notating that all was well with her care. But by April 2002, the Florida Department of Children and Families assigned a new caseworker to oversee Rilya's care. And when they went to go do a home visit, they discovered that no one had seen Rilya in nearly 2 years. Her case has since sparked legislation that has changed the Florida foster care system forever. But nearly 25 years later, Rilya's whereabouts are still unknown. This is the disappearance of Rilya Wilson. Remember, I love you always. This is the phrase turned acronym that inspired Rilya's name. On September 29, 1996, Rilya was born into a challenging life. Her mom, Gloria, suffered from substance use disorder and used during her pregnancy. Gloria knew that she was struggling and couldn't provide the care that Rilya needed, so she arranged for a woman named Pamela Kendrick to care for her. Pamela Kendrick is the daughter-in-law of one of Gloria's close family friends, so she took Rilya to her home in Brownsville, Florida, and cared for her for the first 3 years of her life. Throughout these 3 years, a caseworker would come by and check on Rilya, and by most accounts, she had a pretty good life with Pamela Kendrick. She dressed her in frilly Easter dresses, took her to church, and had a birthday party for her every single year at Chuck E. Cheese. I mean, Rilya called Pamela Kendrick Mom, and their neighbors said that Rilya seemed happy and well taken care of while with Kendrick. They remember her as sweet and well-mannered. However, Pamela Kendrick was investigated by the Florida Department of Children and Families, or DCF. This happened in 1998, after it was reported that her older biological daughter showed up to camp with bruises and burn marks on her body. In the end, the caseworker found that there was some indication that she had sustained those bruises at home, but neither Rilya or the other child were removed from Kendrick's care. Now, Rilya was not Gloria's only child. She has an older sister named Randy who was cared for by a local pastor and his wife. And she had a younger sister named Roderica. She was born in the late 90s, and she was placed in the care of 2 local Miami area women, Geralyn and Pamela Graham, who claimed to be sisters. In a custody hearing for Roderica, the Grahams learned that the baby had an older sister, Rilya, so they get in touch with Pamela Kendrick and set up a time for Rilya to meet her baby sister. Pamela Kendrick has no problem with this. She even let them take Rilya out with Roderica to spend some time together. She says that when they dropped Rilya off, she and Geralyn Graham chatted about the girls getting together again soon. But when the Grahams went home, they called DCF and filed a report against Pamela Kendrick, saying her house was filthy and unfit for a child. Geralyn told the caseworker that when she walked into the house, Rilya was sitting on the floor next to a pile of human feces, trying to eat a piece of bread. They described it as subhuman conditions. So DCF looks through Rilya's file and finds that on multiple visits, her caseworker, Deborah Muskelly, had noted that her house was in disarray. But she didn't report anything like the conditions that Geralyn Graham reported. Nevertheless, DCF did remove Rilya from the home and placed her in the care of Pamela Graham. Now, it was apparently only Pamela Graham who was appointed as her legal caregiver, because Pamela cared for Geralyn, who reportedly suffered from numerous health issues after a car accident in the late 90s. Geralyn also claimed that her son Keith was both Rilya and Roderica's biological father. But Rilya's true paternity has never been proven. In April 2000, when the Grahams took Rilya in, Gloria Wilson's parental rights were formally terminated in court. Those documents listed a man named Manuel Cash as Rilya's prospective biological father. In 2002, Cash was in jail, but claimed he was Rilya's father, and prior to his arrest, he had visited her at Pamela Kendrick's home. Either way, we don't know for sure. But for 2 years, DCF thought that both Rilya and Roderica were in a safe, loving home with the Grahams. They had no reason to believe otherwise, because the girls' caseworker, Deborah Muskelly, always gave positive reports after checking in on the girls. However, early in 2002, Muskelly's credibility was questioned when the department made a shocking discovery. She'd been falsifying records for years. They discovered that she had a second job as a substitute teacher, and she frequently billed time to the state for casework when she was actually teaching at nearby elementary schools. To make up for all that lost time, Muskelly falsified documents, claiming she had conducted in-home visits with multiple children when she had not. It's an awful situation. Deborah Muskelly and her supervisor, Willie Harris, both resigned from DCF before they could be terminated. But the agency still had a big mess to clean up. They now had to check on all of the children formerly assigned to Muskelly and all the other caseworkers that Harris supervised. And this did include Rilya and Roderica Wilson. So a caseworker sent to the Grahams' home for a visit. Roderica was home, but when the counselor asked about Rilya, Geralyn asked, "Are you bringing her back?" And the caseworker is understandably confused. They're like, "What do you mean? Rilya's not here. Where is she?" And Graham told them that on January 18th, 2001, a caseworker from DCF picked Rilya up and took her for a mental health evaluation. And she said no one ever returned her. But DCF had no record of Rilya being removed from the home. And now the women who were responsible for her care had not seen her in 16 months. This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Chewy. If you have pets, you probably know about Chewy, and you also know that when they say that they have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy, they're not messing around. To keep them happy, Chewy has over 100,000 products from all the brands my pets love at prices I love. To keep them healthy, Chewy offers pet prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're even rolling out vet clinics across the country. I've been shopping with them for a very long time. And in addition to the auto-ship feature that gets the dog's food to them every single month, I also love to experiment with different treats. But I'm a bit picky. For me, it has to be high quality with simple ingredients. I recently picked up treats from Shepherd Boy Farms that are 100% just chicken breast. Popcorn and Heber are already obsessed. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney. That's chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney to save $20 on your first order with free shipping. chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Muskelly's progress notes for Rilya ended in January 2001. But in August of 2001, a court-ordered review of Rilya and Roderica's care found that both children were living happily with the Grahams. In the review, Muskelly wrote, quote, "Custodians are addressing children's needs. They are providing the support these girls need. The current caretakers are planning to adopt the children at this time. This is the best placement. Since last hearing, there has not been any educational disruptions." End quote. So Muskelly lied. Now the state was faced with a lying employee and a missing child, who they were 16 months behind in searching for. Of course, their first question was, which DCF employee took Rilya from the Graham home? She was described as a black female, who spoke with an accent that could be African. The woman was familiar with details of Rilya's case, and that Muskelly was aware of her visit and Rilya's removal for evaluations. Geralyn claims that Rilya suffered from behavioral problems. She says that in February 2001, another DCF employee came to the house to collect some of Rilya's clothing and toys so that she'd be more comfortable in her new surroundings. But she did not tell her where Rilya went. The Grahams were shown a photo directory of every DCF employee, but couldn't identify any of them as the person who took Rilya, or the employees who came in February to get the toys and clothes. Geralyn is defending herself. She's saying that all these people are coming to the house, that her caseworker knew that Rilya was gone, and she says that she repeatedly called DCF to check on Rilya's status for over a year and was denied any answers. Pretty soon, the news was out. The state of Florida had completely lost track of a child in their custody for over a year. And of course, like Geralyn, DCF was quick to defend themselves. The organization's secretary and top official, Kathleen Turney, released a statement calling what happened to Rilya an isolated incident. She puts all the blame on Muskelly, saying that she lied and was deceptive in her reporting. The organization was scrambling, but there was hope that Rilya had simply been lost within the system. After days of agency officials placing blame on each other, Geralyn told the Miami Herald, quote, "I'm getting a little frustrated. Instead of trying to find where the baby is, it seems people are trying to point fingers. The child is somewhere." End quote. But the word was out and the tips started coming in. A foster mom in Pasco County came forward, saying her foster daughter matched Rilya's description, but this child was quickly ruled out as being Rilya. Probably the most promising lead in this case was a Jane Doe that was found in Kansas City, Missouri. I actually spoke about this same doe last week in the episode about Tika Lewis. On April 28, 2001, a 3-year-old girl was found deceased in a wooded area outside of Kansas City. She was given the name Precious Doe. However, as we know, she was later identified as Erica Michelle Maria Green. Her mother and stepfather were later charged and convicted of her murder. It's not Rilya, but no one knows that just yet. Of course, investigators also look into Rilya Wilson, but she was not suspected to be involved. She was living in Cleveland at the time and had no contact with her kids. Rilya was heavily criticized in the media, but she spoke out. She says that no matter what happened in her past, the state was at fault for losing Rilya. This feels like a tale as old as time at this point. DCF was under extreme scrutiny again, and many people felt like they really just wanted to cover their tracks. One columnist for the Miami Herald, Fred Grimm, wrote that Kansas City cared more for a faceless, nameless child than the entire state of Florida did about Rilya Wilson. He said, quote, "The missing child was shrugged off in South Florida. No memorial service. No outraged demonstrations. Just another embarrassed news conference by a DCF official trying to explain how a child under the state's supervision could be lost and maybe murdered. End quote. Obviously, with so much time being lost in this case, the search for Rilya just looked really different than we see in traditional missing children cases. Dogs did search on and around the Grahams property for traces of Rilya, but they came up short. They checked local hospitals and preschools for her, but they just couldn't find anything. Meanwhile, then Florida Governor Jeb Bush continued to defend Kathleen Kearney and DCF as an organization, saying more needed to be done to hold caseworkers responsible. He began working on legislation to criminalize social workers falsifying documents. Geralyn Graham continued to blame DCF for neglecting Rilya. She said that she told Kelly that due to Rilya's so-called behavioral problems, she believed she'd been mistreated in her previous home with Pamela Kendrick. But she says Kelly told her that that couldn't be proven, and that she needed to drop it. Geralyn says that Rilya's behavior got progressively worse, and that she would do things to harm herself, like banging her head against the wall. She says that she reported this to Kelly in November 2000, saying something had to be done or else Rilya would seriously hurt herself or her younger sister. And she says Kelly told her to not rock the boat, or the adoption process might be delayed. She says that when this person came to take Rilya for testing, she thought that she was finally getting the help that she needed, but then she just never came back. Geralyn reiterates that through those 16 months she spoke to Kelly multiple times, asking her when Rilya was coming back. And apparently Kelly just kept saying that they were working on it. So basically, Geralyn Graham is saying that they've been trying to find Rilya this entire time. But the state wasn't taking Geralyn at her word. Then, in late April, Roderica was removed from the Graham home. They fought back against this, saying that the state had already lost one of their children and shouldn't be able to take the other one. Meanwhile, more information about Geralyn was coming out in the press. A doctor came forward and said that she was suffering from a psychiatric condition similar to schizophrenia that was supposedly the result of a bad car crash she had in 1996. After the crash, she suffered severe memory loss. However, her lawyer said that she was cured of these conditions by 2002. Geralyn was also known for using aliases, and a lot of them. She served some time in a Tennessee state prison in the 80s, using the name Geralyn Savage, with Geralyn spelled a different way. On a 1986 disability application, she admitted to using the names Geraldine Thomas, Geraldine Williams, Jerry Ann Eskridge, Jerry Ann Johnson, Geralyn A. Savage, and Jerry Ann Jackson. And her lawyer again combats this and says that all of this was to hide her from an abusive boyfriend. Geralyn also admitted to accepting payments from the state for Rilya's care even after she was removed. Like Rilya being removed, though, she says she told DCF about this, that she was still getting this money when she shouldn't be, and they told her to just keep it. So we've got a lot of information that puts Geralyn Graham's character in question, but none of these things prove that she was violent or capable of doing something terrible to Rilya. Both Geralyn and Pamela Graham were given polygraph tests, and the results came back as inconclusive. The Miami-Dade police chief Carl Alvarez said that both women showed deception, and he did not believe that either was being completely truthful about what happened to Rilya. This episode of Voices for Justice is brought to you by Quince. I've been trying to be more intentional about what I wear each day. I'm leaning into pieces that feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together, and Quince has been my go-to. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are flattering, and everything just works without overthinking it. They use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra-soft denim. And the best part? Everything is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup. I recently just ordered their tiered linen dress, of course in black. I wanted to pair it with one of my favorite pairs of brown wedges. The problem was, I didn't have a brown purse. So I got that from Quince too. It's one of my favorite outfits. It's easy, effortless, and feels amazing, especially as we're getting a little bit warmer here in Phoenix. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/justice for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/justice for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/justice.
What they did to your family, you're lucky to make it out alive.
Streaming on Peacock.
These men are going to come after me. Taking them out is my only chance.
Put a bullet in her head.
From the co-creator of Ozark.
Looks like a family was running drugs.
Execution-style killing, it's rare for the Keys. And it leads on who they might have been running for.
The cartel killed my family. I'm gonna kill them. All of them.
MIA. Streaming now. Only on Peacock.
Now, Rilya's case is gaining traction. Pretty soon, there's a $25,000 reward being offered for information leading to her, and her case was featured on America's Most Wanted. It also sparked new legislation. The law criminalizing falsification of documents by caseworkers was soon passed. Now, of course, Muskelly was not off the hook. She was charged with 41 counts of misconduct related to her role at DCF. And one charge of grand theft for double billing the state for social work and substitute teaching at the same time. She pled guilty to exactly one charge of official misconduct. Every other charge was dropped. It came out that Muskelly had been demoted and reprimanded by the agency multiple times before she was caught falsifying documents. But, of course, people wanted to know how she was able to get away with so much before she resigned. And they were in no way satisfied in blaming just Muskelly for DCF's failures. People demanded change and answers for what happened to Rilya, saying that her case was unraveling decades of problems in the state's system. In 2000, a runaway specialist with DCF, Ruben Bentecourt, studied DCF's handling of runaway cases and found that DCF did not follow protocol in 73% of the 129 cases he studied. 73%. He wrote, quote, "This reporting is not being done," end quote. At this time, of the 374 children DCF could not locate, all of which they said were runaways, only 143 of them were in the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's database. It took DCF 6 days to officially report Rilya missing after they knew that she was gone. And there are policies around this. They are required to notify the Missing Children Information Clearinghouse of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children within 3 business days of not being able to find a child. This, of course, did not happen for Rilya Wilson. In early May, Kearney issued a mandate that all DCF supervisors in the Miami district visit the home of every child in foster care or in the care of a non-custodial relative. She mandated that caregivers, and in some instances older children, sign a form when a caseworker visits them. This was actually already being done in Tampa, but this was put into effect immediately in Miami. Some Florida state lawmakers began advocating for an expansion to the DCF Guardian program. They wanted to appoint lawyers as advocates or guardians for some of these kids in the foster care system who had been deemed to be neglected. Now, this was not a new idea that was sparked by Rilya's case. This is something that had been previously put forward and struck down after Kearney lobbied against it. She said that she didn't want lawyers looking over her shoulder. Then, on May 11th, DNA tests confirmed that Precious Doe was not Rilya Wilson. While, of course, everyone wanted Rilya to be found alive, this was really the one and only credible lead generated in the investigation so far. It was all they had at this point, and now they were back at square one. On May 15th, a judge ruled that Roderica was neglected of the medical care that she needed by the Grahams. The judge ruled that the Grahams could not regain custody of her, and she was placed with another family who eventually adopted her. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children did produce an age-progressed photo of Rilya. This was put in Walmart stores across the country. By mid-May, the Miami-Dade police asked officials in the Bahamas to help search for her, because the Grahams claim that she was born there, though there doesn't appear to be any evidence to back this up. But either way, it really can't hurt. Rilya's photo was distributed to schools in the Bahamas, printed in newspapers, and shown in an ad. No leads came from it. And then, finally, investigators get a lead that they can actually work with. And it completely shakes Geralyn Graham's timeline. They claim that in February 2001, they saw her go to a doctor's appointment with Geralyn and Roderica. But right now, this kind of just sits. In the meantime, the Blue Ribbon panel came back with their suggestions for improving DCF. This included enforcing monthly visits, setting up a hotline for foster parents to call when they don't receive those monthly visits, and requiring background checks on all prospective foster parents. They also gave a September 1st deadline for DCF to update their web database for children, including fingerprints, birth certificates, and updated photos. They also recommended purchasing fingerprint scanners by August 1st. They said that they would get the results in 48 hours instead of 2 months, which was apparently considered the norm at the time. In the least shocking news in this entire episode, the panel did not find Kearney at fault for what happened to Rilya. Meanwhile, she was establishing new policies of her own. After a woman reported that 2 men claiming to be DCF employees came to her house and tried to take her child away, Kearney implemented a new policy that a uniformed police officer has to accompany a DCF worker when a child is removed from the home, and that all employees would now be required to carry photo identification when making any visits. By early June, DCF announced that they'd completed their headcount of every child in state care, and that Rilya was the only one unaccounted for. However, this headcount included 401 runaways, 135 victims of kidnapping by a non-custodial parent or relative, and 421 children living out of state. So one could argue that many children were not accounted for, since they literally could not locate them. But this seems to be more of a technicality of putting a label on missing children related to circumstances versus actually accounting for their whereabouts. Soon after, a longtime employee of DCF who supervised those responsible for Rilya's care is fired. Then, wouldn't you know it, in July 2002, tragedy struck again. Alfredo Montes, a 1-year-old foster child in DCF care, was beaten to death and left on the side of the road in Tampa. He was allegedly killed by a babysitter who was angry at him for soiling his diaper. And here's the thing. His caseworker lied about visiting him on the same day he was murdered. So again, these new rules are not working, or at least are not being enforced. In August, Kathleen Kearney resigned, followed quickly by Charles Auslander, the DCF director for the Miami-Dade region. But Rilya is still missing, and the police continue to suspect that the Grahams knew more than what they were saying. They just didn't have enough to charge them with anything related to her disappearance. But that doesn't mean that they escaped other charges. On October 3rd, Geralyn, Pamela, and 2 of their relatives were arrested on fraud charges. Geralyn was charged with 7 counts of public assistance fraud, 1 count of forgery, driver's license fraud, title fraud, and making a false affidavit. Pamela was charged with 6 counts of aiding and abetting public assistance fraud, 5 counts of welfare fraud, and 1 count of grand theft. They were both accused of stealing over $14,000 in nutrition assistance and welfare funds, including payments for Rilya's care that they knowingly accepted after her disappearance. Police were hoping that while they were in custody, they would get more answers about Rilya. Police were not shy in talking about how they felt about the Grahams. At a press conference, Doyle Jordan, the regional director of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, said, quote, "We think the people arrested today are the people who know where Rilya Wilson is." End quote. Now, because Geralyn had all these aliases, she was actually charged as Jane Doe. Authorities said that they didn't know her real legal name. Her bond was originally set at $600,000, but both women's bonds were soon reduced, and Pamela was able to bail out. And the reward for information leading to Rilya skyrocketed to $100,000. In December, Geralyn was convicted of fraud for using a friend's social security card and driver's license to buy a car. She got 3 years in prison. In 2003, Pamela pleaded guilty to fraud and grand theft. She was ordered to pay fines and sentenced to 2 years probation.
Zootopia 2 has come home to Disney+.
Let's go!
Get ready for a new case.
We're gonna crack this case and prove we're the greatest partners of all time!
New friends.
You are... Gary the Snake. And your last name? The Snake.
Dream team.
Hit new habitats.
Zootopia has a secret reptile population.
You can watch the record-breaking phenomenon at home.
You're clearly working it.
Zootopia 2, now available on Disney+, rated PG.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities, so do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
While the Grahams were not budging on any information about Rilya, more witnesses began coming forward, and pretty much everything starts to come out. One former friend said that they used to lock Rilya in a dog cage, and investigators confirmed that they removed a dog cage large enough to hold a small child from the Grahams' home. Eventually, Geralyn admits to hitting Rilya with a switch, causing welts on her legs. On August 19, 2004, Geralyn Graham was charged with aggravated child abuse and kidnapping after 3 witnesses, including Pamela Graham, testified against her. Now, you might be wondering about the kidnapping charge. I was too. But this apparently came about because she was keeping Rilya from Pamela, who by law was her caregiver. Now, before I go into everything else, I want to warn you that the accusations against Geralyn are horrific. In addition to locking Rilya in a dog cage, she's accused of tying her and handcuffing her to her bed, and locking her in a pitch-black dark laundry room, sometimes for days at a time. I will remind you that Rilya was 4 when she went missing. Now, Pamela was also charged with lesser counts of child abuse and neglect for failing to stop Geralyn's abuse of Rilya. But in exchange for turning on Geralyn, Pamela only ended up serving 364 days and getting 5 years probation. And then it comes out. In a sworn statement to police, Pamela finally admits that no one from DCF ever came to pick Rilya up. She says that one day she came home from work in December of 2000 to find that Rilya was gone. She said that she begged Geralyn to tell her where she went, and feared she may have accidentally killed her and disposed of her body. She says Geralyn told her that Rilya was okay, and that she didn't hurt her, but that she would not be staying with them anymore. Pamela says Geralyn told her to stick to the story about DCF taking her away. Pamela also signed a statement saying that she had neglected and abused Rilya, but caused no additional harm. And more witnesses just start coming out. Someone comes forward to say that Geralyn told them that she gave Rilya to a Spanish lady. Over a year later, when she read that Rilya was missing, she asked Geralyn what happened, and she said that the Spanish lady took her, then gave her back to DCF. Pamela kinda confirms this Spanish lady story, saying that her last name is either Gomez or Gonzalez, and says that she also thought that Geralyn may have given Rilya to her when she disappeared. They apparently didn't know this woman well, but had met her at a park. Pamela also adds that Geralyn was always telling people that they could have Rilya. After all these details come out, Geralyn decides to give the Miami Herald an exclusive jail interview. In it, she says that Rilya is still alive out there somewhere. She specifically told reporter Lisa Arthur, quote, "Rilya's old enough to read now. One day she's going to read or see something, and she's going to show up. Rilya's going to show up, and I wasted my life sitting in here for something I didn't do." End quote. And Geralyn finally admits that she and Pamela were not sisters, but were instead in a decade-long loving relationship that she describes as romantic but not sexual. Of course, none of that really changes Rilya's case, but I do think that it shows her propensity to lie. Things just keep heating up for Geralyn Graham as all these lies begin to unfold. Then in March 2005, she is officially charged with first-degree murder. Now, this was apparently sparked by a jailhouse informant. They called police in April 2004 to tell them that Geralyn had confessed to her that she killed Rilya. This informant was publicly identified as 42-year-old Robin Lunsford. She shared a floor with Geralyn at a Florida detention center. Lunsford was facing armed robbery charges at the time. She said that she flirted with Geralyn to earn her trust, and eventually she told her that she killed Rilya by smothering her with a pillowcase. And over time, Geralyn kind of adds to her story. She says that at one point she even tried to return Rilya to Pamela Kendrick's home, but couldn't because the conditions were too poor. She alleged that while there, she was neglected and even possibly molested. Geralyn also admitted that she thought Rilya had mental problems, was evil, and had demons. Allegedly, she said that her last straw was at Halloween in 2000. She wanted Rilya to dress up as an angel, but Rilya wanted to dress as Cleopatra. Lunsford said, quote, "Her words were that she knew at one point that there was no help for the baby, and she knew what she had to do. And that's it. That was the end of it. She said the baby was suffering, and she couldn't let it grow up to suffer like that." End quote. Lunsford said that Geralyn buried Rilya near a pond where Pamela Graham used to take her to play, saying that she chose that spot because water represents peace, and she wanted to give the baby a proper burial. She also says that Geralyn referred to Rilya as it, and said, "I killed it." Now, law enforcement does back Lunsford up. They say that she gave information that only someone close to the investigation would know. And apparently Geralyn was talking all over the place, because in April, another former cellmate of hers comes forward to say that in 2003, Geralyn told her that she killed a baby. I think by now we are well aware that the justice system moves extremely slowly, and that is especially true in Rilya's case. This trial wouldn't start until December 2012, over 7 years since Geralyn was originally charged with murder, and nearly 12 years since Pamela Graham last saw Rilya. After all these years, Rilya still hadn't been found, not even at the location that Lunsford said that Graham told her she was at, and there were virtually no updates on her case. But of course, the trial does eventually begin. The prosecution calls up a number of witnesses, including Geralyn's former friend who testified that Geralyn asked her to borrow her dog cage specifically to keep Rilya in it. Deborah Muskelly, the caseworker who lied about visiting Rilya, admitted that she failed her and apologized for what she did, but still insisted that Geralyn misled her into thinking that Rilya was okay for over a year. Pamela Graham testified that Geralyn did originally want Rilya, and at first it was all love. But within a few weeks, Geralyn became distressed by Rilya's behavior. She admitted that Geralyn would confine her to the laundry room for days at a time, and in one instance, Rilya came out with a terrible burn on her face. Geralyn said it was from the hot water heater. She also testified that Geralyn would restrain Rilya to the bed at night so that she wouldn't climb on the furniture. Pamela admitted that while she would tell Rilya goodbye every day before she left for work, she did not remove those restraints. It's obviously extremely clear that Rilya was horribly abused. Pamela goes on to say that as punishment for wetting the bed, Geralyn dipped Rilya in scalding hot bath water, and that Geralyn refused to get her medical help after she ingested bleach. So why didn't Pamela stop any of this? Well, she says that she was scared of Geralyn. She said on that first night that she realized that Rilya was gone, she did threaten to call the police, and Geralyn threatened to kill her with a hammer. 3 inmates also testified against Geralyn, the first being Robin Lunsford, who maintained her story that Geralyn smothered Rilya and buried her near water. She admitted that she had previously been reluctant to testify because she'd been labeled as a snitch in prison and was abused by other inmates. She said that she would never say anything if someone had committed robbery, but nothing got under her skin like crimes against children. Another inmate, Maggie Carr, testified that Geralyn had asked her how they could prosecute a murder without a body, saying it had been destroyed by the elements and critters and would not be found. The last inmate, Ramona Tavia, testified that when she first met Geralyn, she maintained her innocence, stating that a white man from DCF had taken Rilya. But after a while, she changed her story to say that she'd killed Rilya to protect Pamela. She said, quote, "She said she was doing it for Pam. She had to protect Pam. She's sick. She's weak. So she killed the baby for Pam." End quote. Now, the defense does what defense teams do and work to mostly discredit the state's witnesses. They argued that Robin Lunsford was an informant for other cases as well, basically that she'd do anything to get time taken off her sentence. And they said something similar about Pamela Graham, that she would say anything to avoid taking responsibility as Rilya's true legal guardian. But in the end, the prosecution had the jurors convinced that Geralyn had murdered Rilya. Well, all but one of them. In a deadlock 11-1 vote, the jury was unable to convict Geralyn Graham of first-degree murder. They did, however, unanimously convict her of child abuse and kidnapping. She was given 55 years. She will spend the rest of her life in prison. After the verdict was read, prosecutor Joshua Weintraub said, quote, "There are many ways to achieve justice, and the fact that they didn't come back on a murder charge doesn't mean that justice was not done for Rilya Wilson." End quote. As far as our reporter Brooke could find, the state of Florida considers Rilya's case to be closed. But of course, Rilya's legacy is so much more than this. Since the news of Rilya being missing broke, there's one lawmaker who has fought tooth and nail for change on Rilya's behalf, Rilya Wilson, who, despite her name, is of no relation to Rilya. Wilson served the Florida State Senate, representing the Miami area in the 2000s, and since 2013 has served as a U.S. Congresswoman for Florida in Washington, D.C. In 2003, Wilson sponsored a bill that would require children in state protective services from birth to school age to attend early education or child care programs. It was dubbed the Rilya Wilson Act. If a child is repeatedly absent or suddenly pulled from a program, DCF would be notified and have to investigate. Wilson believes that if Rilya had been in daycare and stopped showing up, her disappearance would have been noticed much sooner. Governor Jeb Bush signed this bill into law in May 2003, and the Rilya Wilson Act is still in place in Florida today. And that's basically where Rilya's case is today. While it seems so clear that we know who's responsible for Rilya being gone, she's still never been found. Which brings me right to our call to action. Rilya does still have family out there. While we know that her siblings didn't really get a chance to grow up with her, I still have to imagine that they would like to see Rilya laid to rest properly. So I will ask you to share her case and her picture in hopes that someday she will be recovered. I also want to ask you to share this for every single child in the foster care system. If you're a longtime listener of Voices for Justice, you know that Rilya is far from the first child who has gone missing or been killed while under the care of the state. Raising awareness about this issue is vital. These kids interact with so many adults: doctors, teachers, caregivers, parents of friends, extended family, counselors. The list goes on. You could be one of those people. We know that caseworkers in these systems are overloaded. The system does not function as it should. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem that major reform correcting the issue of literally losing children is coming anytime soon. So we have to keep talking about these cases. Harmony Montgomery, Anaya Walker, Oakley Carlson, Rilya Wilson. Please share their cases. Hopefully, if we keep screaming about these issues and continue to shine a bright light on these agencies, we'll someday see that reform that is greatly needed. As a reminder, while the exact date that Rilya Wilson went missing is unknown, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children lists her missing date as January 18th, 2001. She was 4 years old when she went missing, and if she's alive today, she would be 27. She is black, with black hair and brown eyes. Her ears are pierced, and she was described as having a scar from a puncture wound about 5 inches below her navel. If you have any information about Rilya, please contact the Florida Department of Law Enforcement at 850-410-8161. And if you know of a child in Florida that's being abused, you can contact the Florida Abuse Hotline at 1-800-96-ABUSE. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time. Voices for Justice is hosted and produced by me, Sarah Turney, and is a Voices for Justice Media original. This episode contains writing and research assistance by Brooke Haynes. If you love what we do here, please don't forget to follow, rate, and review the show in your podcast player. It's an easy and free way to help us and help more people find these cases in need of justice. Welcome to the Secret After Show. The door is open, our emotional support puppies are in the room. Let's talk about Rilya's case. Now, a lot of what I want to talk about, I think, stems from my own experience working with kids in foster care. If you guys have listened to the show for a good amount of time, you've probably heard me talking about it. Granted, this was like the mid-2010s now, so it's been almost a decade since I've been in the industry. But some of these things that I was reading were just really, really shocking. Like Jeb Bush's panel, the Blue Ribbon panel, coming back, and their suggestions for improvement included enforcing the monthly visits and background checks for all prospective foster parents. Why those things weren't being done before, like enforcing a policy and doing a background check for someone who's going to care for a child, that kind of blew me away that those things weren't being done already. That just like, it's so sad, to be honest. When I'm going through it, I'm like, this is their plan. They're going to enforce policy and run background checks. Whenever I do these cases, the reforms, if you can even call it that they present, are just so lackluster. And it feels like case after case that I cover in all different states, because, you know, different organizations in different states do operate differently. there's just no progress. There's no progress. You cannot tell me that enforcing your own policy is what you're going to do. That's insane to me. So I just wanted to call that out. Another thing I wanted to talk about as it relates to the foster care system is runaways in foster care and reporting. We talked about this a little bit in the episode in terms of numbers, and they were like, every child's accounted for. These many ran away. And it's like, you don't know that. You actually don't know that. It drives me insane. And I just wanted to give some insight from, again, my experience. I don't know how all organizations work, but at the organization that I worked for, when a child would go missing, the house manager or the person above that, the program manager, would be instructed to not report, basically. I think, they would report it to the social worker, and that was about it. There was to be no media on it. That was actually specifically spoken about in the organization, that any media about kids going missing from the organization was bad. And we were to not engage in it. We were, things that make my skin crawl now. So I just want to kind of put that out there. If you see a kid that's missing from foster care and they're labeled as a runaway, and kids do run all the time, absolutely. The thing is, you can't assume that these kids running just stay runaways and that they've gone and, created some amazing life for themselves. A lot of the times, these kids do end up being trafficked. We would see it all the time. Kids would come back. They'd talk about their experiences. We had a lot of, support groups and really awareness. Why can't I think of the term? We would have these big presentations to talk about, the dangers of running from foster care. And some of the stories you heard were just terrifying and horrific. Kids locked in cages under beds and just, the worst of the worst. So all that to go back and say, if you see a child that's deemed as a runaway from foster care, just maybe double check that, share it, and remember that these kids that are labeled as runaways, when they don't come back, it's very possible that they're not just choosing to stay away. My last note here is just being upset with Geralyn and Pamela. How she testified about, Pamela, I should say, testified that Geralyn would restrain Rilya to the bed so that she wouldn't climb on the furniture. If you are considering fostering a child, caring for a child, having a child, you have to be okay with that stuff. Kids make messes. They jump on furniture. They climb on furniture. They knock things over. They break things. They do all sorts of messy things as they explore the world and try to, form their brain. And that just got to me. It wasn't for, you should never restrain a child, to a bed. That's absolutely insane. But, to prevent her from climbing on the furniture. She was 4. I don't know. I just had to put that out there. Like, if you can't handle children being children, please, please, please do not foster them. And again, I just want to encourage you, when you see cases like this, please share them. I do think that reform will only come, and we've seen it in these episodes, right? At least, some type of reform, enforcing policies, whatever. I really think the only thing that's going to move this needle is just shining these bright lights on these stories about how kids are lost in this system all the time. So please keep sharing. These kids don't have, a lot of the time, anyone out there fighting for them, So if you see a case, please share it. I would love that. These kids deserve so much better. On to what's going on with me. Nothing exciting. A lot of life. My hot water heater broke and a tree branch and the tree in my front yard broke, all on the same day. So that was really fun. And I am predictably boring again, and that's okay. I've done nothing true crime related that I can report to you. I'm very sorry about that. I'm just still working on all the same projects I've told you about before. And I'm really hoping to get this next season of Media Pressure out to you guys this year. So take a look out for that. Of course, as we get closer, I will give you dates. I'm just like nose to the ground, just working over here. Very exciting stuff. And on to our segment of hope, which I teased last week. And you guys probably saw it. I mean, it's not like it's a secret. But this comes from July 8th, at least this article. This is from USA Today, written by Taylor Ardrey. And this is what I was talking about. So a missing 17-year-old was located after he randomly popped up on a Twitch stream in Miami months after his disappearance in Michigan. So, I mean, this is a minor, and I don't want to spread too many more details. This is just one of those things where, again, talking about all the ways that kids can be found or people can be found after they go missing, and this kid just pops up on somebody's Twitch stream, and then they find him and recover him. So it's just one of those things. You never know, and I think it's just one more reason to always hold out hope for these cases. Short but sweet. Again, I know that there's not a lot of time between now and the event, but if you are in the Denver area, I will be at the True Crime Podcast Festival this weekend, the weekend that this podcast airs, July 12th through the 14th, I think is the weekend. I will be in Denver, Colorado, and I will have 2 speeches. I'm giving the keynote speech, and then I'm presenting with Julie Murray about what it's like to be a family member in true crime. And I walk you through a pretty crazy experience about this gentleman who made over 100 videos about Alyssa and then about me, saying all sorts of crazy things, really. So I'm excited for that. It's always cool to talk about what it's like. And I try not to do that in these episodes. As you guys know, I try to make it very much separated, right? Like, here's the episode, here are the facts. And then if you want to opt into this secret after show, you can hear what I have to think. So it is nice to be able to talk about just my feelings about this industry and what I've been through. So if that is for some reason of any interest to you and you are in the Denver area, please come by. You can learn more information, hotels, all that kind of stuff at truecrimepodcastfestival.com. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time.
Tires matter. They're the only part of your vehicle that touches the road. Tread confidently with new tires from Tire Rack. Whether you're looking for expert recommendations or know exactly what you want, Tire Rack makes it easy. Fast, free shipping, free road hazard protection, and convenient installation options. Go to TireRack.com to see tire test results, tire ratings, and consumer reviews, and be sure to check out all the special offers. TireRack.com, the way tire buying should be.